Welcome to the CodeBreaker Mindset, where leaders and influencers share the rules, pivots, and serendipity to achieving goals and dreams. I'm your host, Chitra Nawbatt. Joining us today is BD Wong, Tony Award winning and Emmy nominated actor. BD, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Chitra. Hello. Hi, everybody.
You've been a Hollywood actor for 40 plus years, acting in more than 30 films, more than 35 TV shows, and a handful of plays. You won the Tony Award for M. Butterfly, and you were nominated for an Emmy for Mr. Robot. Law and Order Special Victims Unit, the Jurassic Park film series are some of your popular work. BD, if you can break down for us those key written rules and unwritten rules in terms of what it takes to be great and have a sustained career in Hollywood and Broadway.
Well, I think the written rules are likability, popularity, follows and followers, and playing the game and participating. Actors have to participate, otherwise they get invisible, and doing good work. And I'd say the unwritten rules are, ooh, wow, the unwritten rules. They must be, huh, what's unwritten? What would unwritten be? This is hard. What's
Things that nobody.
hidden? The things that nobody tells you.
Yep.
Well, it's hard. There's it's hard. It's like really, the rejection and the kind of the stuff that you have to go through and the stuff that you have to be prepared for are really intense. It's a very intense existence to be constantly putting yourself up for approval or to be selected or to be liked or to be judged. Especially now in the social media context, you can't put your photograph on your feed without inviting all of the opinions that come with it. That's a new thing, kind of. Or
Right.
that's a thing of our times. So that comes with it. And so I think you have to be really strong. I think you have to have a constitution like iron, and I think you have to take care of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, because all of it is just you. There's no one. There's nothing you can hide behind except you. You are the thing that is the craft that you're doing, and you are the spokesperson for yourself. You are all of it. You can't. It's like, it's like a musician. You can't take the violin and put it away in a case. You are it.
So how do you deal with the no's? How do you deal with the rejection? And how do you build up the fortitude to deal with all the things you've just described?
I love doing it. I really love doing it. I love it. I love being a storyteller. I love the opportunity to use your platform to create discussions and conversations about life that's separate from the art. And I love participating in public discussions like that. And so that drives me in a certain way. And I also love the form, the art form, the creativity, the thing. So that is a foundation for me to get me through it. I'm I think you just can never, ever, 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 ever take stuff personally. And you want to all the time. You want to blame or you want to attribute some kind of rejection to some flaw in yourself when I'd say 12 times out of 10, it is not that. The selection process, the casting process, is all much more complex than that. And the reasons why you don't get picked have very little to nothing to do with you and your value and your worth as a human being and your talent. It really isn't. So once you figure that out, it kind of lets you can let yourself off the hook and you can get through more. You can be more resilient that way. And you have to have a really great support system. You have great partners who understand what you do and appreciate and support what you do. And you have to have a really good system of friendship and friends and family.
Let's get into the pivots. What are some of those profound career and life pivots that you've had to make?
The first one was that I became a dad in 2000, and then I was miraculously offered
Awesome.
a contract on Law and Order SVU really soon. after that happened. And that caused me to take a job that I stayed with for 11 years. When I was more of a creative person. You know, I was a character actor. I played all kinds of different wacky roles and things up until that time. And when I left the show, I had to get that back. I had to get my identity as a creative actor who immersed himself in characters back. It took like 2 years for people to remember that I did all those
Huh.
other roles before Law and Order. And then I felt like I was myself again when I got Gotham, and I could transform myself, and I got Mr. Robot. Those two jobs really played a huge role in me feeling like I was myself again. And that was one big pivot. The other pivot is that my way back from when I was a high school student, my teacher reminded me and was very strong with me about the fact that I did many things. And she made me design the posters for the plays and the sets and the costumes and did choreography, and then I've become a writer, and actually had me direct a lot of the productions and stuff. And she kind of instilled in me this idea that I did different things. And so really recently I have returned to, because it took so much energy to become an actor and to stay being an actor, that I let these other things like directing and writing fall by the wayside. And I have reconnected with them in the last, I guess, 10 or so years. And that has also made me feel like I am myself more.
Yep.
So those are two major pivots.
And as part of that, many perceive the industry, Hollywood, Broadway, very competitive, could be cutthroat, nepotism. It's about who you know. And as you said earlier, sometimes you don't get the part. It has nothing to do with your ability and skill.
Hmm.
Has there been scenarios where you felt someone in the industry hijacked you, sabotaged you? Um, was there such a situation? And if there was, how did you deal with it? How do you recover from that?
I don't feel like I have that anecdotal evidence of that. I feel like there have been a lot of rocky road kind of situations, so it's not like all like sunshine and roses at all. But as far as any particular person actively sabotaging, I think there are there are people you're in competition with, and there are people that you kind of observe, and I'm in therapy, and the one thing you mustn't ever do is compare yourself to other people, what they have, what they don't have, what you have, what they don't have. You mustn't do that. And so I make it a real point to not compare myself with other people, to compare myself with myself and the
Yep.
goals that I have, and that's really helpful. But I don't think I have a juicy story about that.
Well, when you talk about those rocky roads, what's an example of one of those big rocky road scenarios? How you dealt with it, how you recovered, how you pivoted, how you built yourself back up?
Hmm. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's any particular, let's see, what story, when I left Law and like I said, mentioned just a little bit back, when I left Law and Order, I was a little bit at sea. I made the choice to leave a show that's still on now. It's 26 years old, that show. And I left like 11 seasons into it. So I could have stayed. I could be much wealthier than I am now, to be quite honest, if I had stayed on it. I didn't
Huh.
want to, and I felt a strong need to kind of get back to the work that I wanted to do, and myself, a sense of myself. And when I left the show and I made that commitment to myself to do that, my son was older and I felt
Yep.
like I was safe to do that. I had to endure and kind of ride through a long period of time where I didn't work, or where I got work that didn't satisfy me or wasn't interesting or didn't feel like it was the right kind of work for me. And I think I kind of had to trust that eventually things would kind of turn around and steer themselves back to the right way. And they did. And here we are today, this moment that I'm talking to you, we are in a real interesting place in the industry, which is where they've slashed a lot of production. They're not doing as much work as they used to. And I can feel it. I can feel
Yep.
the slowness of it. and I just have to trust that we all have to trust that it kind of finds its way back. This is the cadence of what it means to be an actor. Sometimes you have these great financial and successful moments, and then other times so you have to be really careful about how you spend your money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's
And
yeah,
and on that point, when you talk about the cadence and you feeling sort of less production right now, a lot of impact with technology and artificial intelligence.
yeah.
Going into the future, how does the environment, how does the way that you play the game and that you operate, how does that change with all this technology, all this artificial intelligence that's impacting the industry?
I think that it's really right of us to be really concerned and wary of all of the artificial intelligence and what that can mean for actors and for performers and what it means for the industry and for writers and all of that stuff. And yet, I think that human beings are looking after it in a way that I don't see the kind of dystopic ending to the story that is. I think it can be our friend to have AI in the mix. And this last big SAG strike that we had put on the table the conversation about how you just can't do anything with someone's image that you want, and that if you sign a contract, and that actors should not have to sign a contract that signs away their right to their own likeness, so that AI can be used to make an entire performance that they never gave, and then not pay them for it. So we are having the conversation that supposedly is going to protect actors and writers from these things as a kind of cautionary tale. And I'm hopeful that human beings prevail and that people get it. And I do sense that that conversation was heard. Um, and your question does that answer your question? I feel pretty confident about that. How do we circumvent it? We have to kind of stick our ground, hold our ground about what our work means and what our work is. I also don't see it being done very well in a way that we can be replaced.
Yeah.
I think that it's just if that might happen later on. Right now, I don't see you taking someone's likeness and giving them a whole performance that anyone really buys.
In in Hollywood and Broadway, there's a lot of magic. So let's get into the magic.
Sure.
How do you define serendipity? And where did serendipity play a critical role in your journey?
I have to say that I serendipity. I never use the word, but serendipity is constant in my life, and I feel like I'm noticing it all the time. And it has to do with the people that you encounter, and when you re-encounter them, and what they're doing later, and how you're doing something later, and oh wow, and then you reconnect, and let me see if I can try to be specific about it. I just I don't know if I can be specific about it, Chitra. It's like
That's
it's
okay.
it's a thing that it's ongoing. I do feel it's like it's ongoing, and I
Yeah.
feel like for me the serendipity is not maybe it's not really even actual serendipity, but it is the humanity of our lives as people, how we're interwoven with one another. We grow apart and we come back together. And in the theater and in show business, as a nomadic kind of life that we go from one job to another job. We have these really intense relationships and family feeling kind of working environments, and then
Yep.
it's over and we move on to something else. And the way that it ebbs and flows, and people come back into your life that you might have even forgotten about or haven't seen in decades and decades, that's beautiful and incredible. And it never stops surprising you. It's wonderful. And to me, that's maybe it's not serendipity, but it is this kind of trust
Yeah.
that nothing is lost when you say goodbye to someone, and that every relationship means something, and even though something is very quick and then ends, a job ends, or a show ends, that the things that happen there are real and make you who you are, and allow you to build on your life and your relationships in a way that's really meaningful and really Wonderful.
What's your take on the codebreaker mindset?
You mean the show?
And the concept of being
Oh,
the codebreaker mindset about, written and unwritten rules, pivots, serendipity.
oh.
What's your take on the codebreaker mindset?
Well, I think you're an ass to resist it or to discount it or to not allow it to inform your life and your choices. And it's everywhere. I guess that's what I mean by serendipity. And I didn't really think about this before. I wish I had thought about it more in preparation for this. What it really means to me. I am a person who believes in uh, consequence. I believe in hard work leading to something, but often not leading to the thing you think it leads to,
Huh.
but it leading to something. And I have grown trust over the years in understanding that that is so. In other words, oh, I did this, but it didn't lead to that thing that I wanted it to lead to. And that was my younger self, and the older self is like, it's okay, right? Everything is for a real good reason
Yeah.
and allows and so what is the code breaker part? Break this down for me. What is
Yeah.
the code breaker part of it?
So the
The,
so the code breaker mindset is this notion of most things are not as they appear to be.
yeah,
There's always going to be written and unwritten rules to pursuing any goal.
yeah,
There's always going to be pivots, whether it's voluntary or
I see.
involuntary. And there's always going to be serendipity. And for you, perhaps it was Tom Fontana
Yeah,
watching your work and then
yeah,
writing that opportunity for you.
yeah,
Or the fact that your high school teacher or that acting coach in LA
yeah,
that helped you so much.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and serendipity could also be a headwind. It could be something not working out. So you're not in that location. You have to then go someplace else.
yeah,
So the codebreaker mindset is around
yeah,
written and unwritten rules, pivots, serendipity. But it's really your definition.
yeah.
How do you think about these things? What's your take on the codebreaker mindset? And how does one cultivate the codebreaker mindset?
Great. I feel like I feel like without even knowing it, I live by the code breaker mindset. I mean, I see things not at face value for what they are necessarily. I see often a relationship or an introduction, the way I met you, as a kind of an introduction to something that I don't know quite what it is, but it feels positive and it feels like it shouldn't be shut down. I think from my energy meeting you that
Yep.
I shut very few things down. I'm like, oh wait, what is this? What is the possibility of this?
Yeah. Thank you.
Hello. It's an introduction. Someone like me meets people all the time, and I've learned and grown to love being open to anything, and then going, well, what is the thing that is in there that is useful to me or enlightening to me, or it's something that I can learn from, or something that I can that is positive. And what I have found, and I really strongly believe this, is that these things are everywhere. They're just in everything. You can't go through the day without encountering something that can open a door for you, or that, and I don't mean open a door of opportunity necessarily. I mean open a door to knowledge or insight or a relationship that you didn't expect. It happens all the time. And so, yes, I think part of your being here in the first place is to encourage people to be open to that and to look for it at every opportunity and to embrace it and to get used to it. And I'm super used to it. I might be a really good candidate for this discussion because I try to live by it.
Yeah.
I try to see things, and I'm being invited and asked at any number of reasons to do any number of things. And a lot of the times, or most of the time, I will leave something after. And I say, well, gosh, I didn't really want to do that, but that turned out really good. I met some
Yeah.
really great people. I knew I would, and I just had to kind of be open to it. My husband and I have this really funny and mean response to people sending us wedding invitations because we think we hate going to weddings because they're a pain in the ass and you're getting dressed up and where are we going again and what is this and where are we buying them
Right,
a present, and then you go to the wedding and the wedding is rarely not beautiful on some level of
right.
emotion or your relationship to the people or their relationship to each other or the new people you meet there. And so that's a perfect example to me of how I'm resistant in some ways to something that actually turns out to be really great. Really,
And
really, really great.
just a couple of more things, because one thing you said important earlier, and you talked a little bit about this, is in Hollywood and Broadway, being a person of color, being Asian American, the pros of that experience, the barriers and the cons of that, and how did you overcome that?
Well, of course, this is a whole hour in itself, right?
Yeah.
Talking about race and talking about the way that I interface with my own race and all of that. But what I will say really briefly is it was a thing that was a challenge for me when I was a young boy. I didn't want to be Asian. I didn't want to be queer. I pushed these things aside. And then magically over time, I realized these are the salient, wonderful, incredible, powerful things about me that give me a platform and a voice, that give me an understanding about humanity that some other people don't have, that I can use in my work and I can use in my craft and in my storytelling and in my day to day interactions with other people. It's a point of view. And I went 360 from being really down on
Yeah.
it to being like, oh, I get it now. I get the thing. So in the industry, there is a lot of stuff to weed through and hack through and to that are challenging and challenges. And we see over time a budging of the visibility and
Yep.
representation that we covet and that we're kind of cheerleading on the sidelines for the industry and our industries to continue with the energy of that. We find it becoming a political issue with the shutting down of DEI conversations in colleges and universities across the country because of the administration, the presidential administration. We're in a presidential year. And so what will happen? You and I are talking about this right now on the brink of the actual election and what will happen. Um, this race is just a thing that, boy, it's just a huge part of any discussion about the industry. You just can't, misogyny, race, homophobia, these are all built into the content that is most powerfully created for people to consume. And yet, a lot of people are scared of it. They don't want to deal with it. And there's an age old kind of resistance to keeping things vanilla. Now, not a resistance to all of that, which makes them keep things vanilla, and we're pushing against that. We're not interested anymore, either as audience members or as members of a community, in keeping things vanilla.
And last question,
Uh huh.
whether it's in front of the camera, behind the camera, on the stage, behind the scenes, what do you think it's going to take to really break through the next horizon of people of color, Asian Americans being out there at scale, in front of the camera, on the stage, behind the scenes, just as much as anyone else?
I think that the key to our representation and exposure and power in this industry and in the medium of as entertainers is starting to happen. And what I would have said 5 years ago is, oh, well, we need leading Asian American actors. Let's talk about Asian American for a second, specifically, to star in a Hollywood movie and win Oscars. And then we want the movie to win an Oscar. And we recently were given the gift of that. What the ramifications of that are is not known to us, and whether we can use that momentum artistically and financially, commercially, to take advantage of it and take us to the next level is not to be is to be seen. And it is the opportunity that lays before us right now. That is the moment we're in. That's why I'm a little frustrated that content is down, like production is down now, because this is the time for Asian American writers and people, even more than it was 5 years ago when Nora from Queens, the show that I was on with Aquafina, was written and developed and created. That was a very fresh example of Asian American content. And so that was then. And now here we are on the threshold of, I think, a new wave of people expressing themselves, being hired behind the scenes or on camera, and people appreciating the stories of people universally rather than only the stories of the people that look like them. I think there's a lot of to be said for people that cross over and stories that cross over, and there was a time when people thought, well, black people go to black movies and we don't have any Asian movies, so Asian people have to just deal with whatever there is, and then white people go to white movies. But
Right.
we don't really think that way anymore, and I think that the Asian artists need to take advantage of that.
So you're not saying that it's not a magic bullet where whether it's Netflix or the studio executives or the Broadway financiers, they've got to just say yes, that that either they're holding up progress or, if you had a magic wand to get folks, Asian Americans at scale into these places, out on the stage in front of the screen, is there a magic wand moment or thing or?
I think the magic wand moment was everything everywhere all at once was felt like amazing confluence of incredible artists coming together and the audience being there for them. And I'm not saying that that ended or began anything, but that was as magic wandy as it gets for me. Um, and it was serendipitous. In other words, nobody did it to do it. You can't predict that it's going to be lauded. You can't predict that it's going to be given awards. You can't predict all of those things. They came together. They did the work. They got the community, it's all thumbs up for that. I don't know what else to expect or to demand of the people in power, but there are more of us, in power now than there were before. And so that's another thing to aspire to. I don't know if there's a magic wand hypothetical, actually.
BD, this was amazing. This was awesome. Thank you so much for your
Oh
time. Thank
gosh,
you for
thanks.
being with us.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for supporting the Codebreaker Mindset. For more episodes, go to www.chitranawbatt.com to like and subscribe. Connect with me on social media at Chitra Nawbatt.